Russell. I'm a Jewish resident of New Haven who implores you to do what you can to have the state of Connecticut divest its holdings in Israel bonds.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to the Struggle Video News. One of the most terrible murders at the hands of an Israeli took place in 2015 when an Israeli threw a firebomb into a home of the Dewabsha family, killing 3 Palestinians, including an 18-month-old baby. Notorious was a wedding celebration that took place not long after among Israelis, at which many carried automatic rifles and some stabbed at a picture of that Palestinian baby. Mohammed Shehada has released a video on Twitter of that wedding celebration, along with a translation of the disgusting lyrics, cries for vengeance, and all that wrapped up in a religious primitivism. The reason he's doing it now is because one of the celebrants is none other than Itamar Ben-Gvir, Israel's security minister.
אין לנו תיעוד מצולם של הניסיונות האלה. כל ברבנו כאשר התבגרו אחרי חניכה שכזאת. הסכינים, בקבוק התבערה, מעבר לכל, תמונת התינוק עלי דוואבשה, שנרצח בפעולת נקם, היא זוכה לטיפול מיוחד, שכולל דקירות סכינים, ניסיונות להצית אותו אולי פעם שנייה. מישהו בצה"ל צריך לבדוק איך הגיעו הנשקים האלה, למי הם נמסרו. מעבר לתמונות מחתונת הדמים הזו ומעבר למילים שעוד תבואנה כאן, אז שימו לב למוסיקה. המוסיקה שיוצרת את האווירה. צירים שואגים לדרך, איפה הדרך? צירים שואגים לדרך. ואם קשה להבין את המילים, אז הנה התרגום. הכפירים שואגים לטרף, וזה פסוק מתהילים. שלום טוב, אנחנו רעבים וקפים, מחכים לאור, כבני שמיים. הבא בתור שואג את השירה, אנחנו רעבים מחכים לעוד ריבונו של עולם. בהמשך, נקמה, נקם. אחת משתי עיניי מפלישתים, וכאן משנים מעט ושרים עיניי מפלסטינה. למעלה אנחנו מזהים את בנצי גובשטה, ראש ארגון להבה. אתר האינטרנט ynet מפרסם היום תמונה של איתמר בן גביר במעמד החתונה הזו. הוא עצמו טען היום שניסה להרגיע, אמר שלא ראה את תמונת התינוק.
If you didn't spot Ben-Gvir, here's a still from the video. And by the way, Ben-Gvir was the lawyer who represented the Israeli accused of throwing the firebomb. As I've said before, there is no one more extreme in Israel than Ben-Gvir. Here's Bezalel Smotrich, the Israeli finance minister and unofficial overlord of the West Bank, addressing a group in France. The graphic on the podium caused a hubbub. It's not this usual shape of what the Israeli right considers Israel. It's even larger and includes the country of Jordan. An article on Common Dreams has alerted us to the fact that the British and perhaps American military are sending Ukraine depleted uranium munitions. This is alarming. Uranium is radioactive, and according to the Harvard International Review, depleted uranium is only 40% less radioactive than the original. When ammunition that is made from depleted uranium strikes a target, the uranium turns into a dust that is inhaled by soldiers near the explosion site, and the wind carries this dust to surrounding areas. And this is going to happen in Ukraine. Health effects are uncertain, but depleted uranium is carcinogenic, and there's evidence to suggest that it may also impact hormones. A paper from the World Health Organization reports that someone who inhales a small insoluble uranium particles may experience lung damage or lung cancer due to radiation. This is an interview I did many years ago with a U.S. veteran who was exposed to DU.
I am Herbert Reed. I'm a veteran of the Iraq War. I was contaminated with depleted uranium in 2003, and the U.S. government never notified its soldiers that they were utilizing depleted uranium or the harm that it could cause to the environment or the human component there. And when I returned back, they still deny that depleted uranium is harmful to the soldiers. And when first asked if they could test for any depleted uranium in our system, we were told no. But we found that to be a lie in Warren Gonzalez of the Daily News, and the Daily News itself paid for our testing that was done in Frankfurt, Germany. We all tested positive from the 10 of us that were tested from the 442 Military Police Company in Orangeburg, New York. And what we've been trying to do is try to get the United States to stop using depleted uranium, do more testing, and before any more people can be harmed, any more soldiers or any more countries polluted without depleted uranium waste.
What exactly have been the physical symptoms you suffered that you think are from depleted uranium?
Oh boy, there's so many. I think the bone aches that I have, the constant chill and heat that I feel in my body, it's like it's going on simultaneously. I can feel cold and hot at the same time. I can feel every bone in my body, it seems, sometimes. The blood in my urine, the blood in my stool. I think it has to do with the herniated discs that I have in my body sometimes, I think. The nerve damage that I have, the respiratory problems that I have. I have to sleep with a CPAP machine at night now, and if I don't get a restful sleep.
You're on disability from the Army?
Yes, I am. At first, the military was reluctant to give me a disability, and I had to hire a lawyer to get what I was entitled to.
The authorities, of course, are minimizing the health effects of DU, but the Ukrainian people need to be warned that this depleted uranium is bad business, that the dust from these shells will stay in Ukraine virtually forever. These shells should be rejected. The Struggle Video News is a project of the Middle East Crisis Committee of Connecticut. Over the past few years, we've been struck by the heroism and the strategic sense of one Middle Eastern activist, blogger, and software designer. Over the last decade, he's been mostly in a terrible Egyptian prison, Last year, his case got a lot of international attention, but since that has waned. And we wanted to do something to help him out. So we came up with the idea of giving him an award. We're calling it the Courage Award. So the 2023 Courage Award goes to Alaa Abd El Fattah, the imprisoned Egyptian-British activist. We'll be having a ceremony on April 13th at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut. A collection of Abd El Fattah's writings have been published in a book entitled You Have Not Yet Been Defeated. Will be addressed by the editor and publisher of the book, Dan Simon. So please mark the date. More details at the website, thestruggle.org. Now, as the 20-year mark after the foul invasion of Iraq is being commemorated, we wanted to play a video of Tony Benn in Parliament 20 years ago denouncing the idea that Britain would join in.
War is an easy thing to talk about. There are not many people of the generation that remember it. The right honourable gentleman served with distinction in the last war. I never killed anyone, but I wore uniform. But I was in London in the Blitz in 1940, living in the Millbank Tower where I was born. Some different ideas have come in since. And every night I went down to the shelter in Thames House. Every morning I saw Dockland burning. 500 people were killed in Westminster one night by a landmine. It was terrifying. Aren't Arabs terrified? Aren't Iraqis terrified? Don't Arab and Iraqi women weep when their children die? Doesn't bombing strengthen their determination? What fools we are to live in a generation for which war is a computer game for our children and just an interesting little Channel 4 news item. Every member of Parliament tonight who votes for the government motion will be consciously and deliberately accepting the responsibility for the deaths of innocent people if the war begins, as I fear it will. Now, that's for their decision to take. But this is a quite unique debate in my parliamentary experience where we're asked to share responsibility for a decision we won't really be taking with consequences for people who have no part to play in the brutality of the regime which we are dealing with. And I finish with this. On October the 24th, 1945, and the former Prime Minister from Bexley, Old Sidcup, will remember it, the United Nations Charter was passed. And the words of that charter are etched into my mind and move me even as I think of them. We, the people of the United Nations, determined to save future generations, succeeding generations, from the scourge of war, which twice in our lifetime has caused untold suffering to mankind. That was the pledge of that generation to this generation, and it would be the greatest betrayal of all if we voted to abandon the Charter and take unilateral action and pretend we were doing it in the name of the international community. And I shall vote against the motion for the reasons that I've given the House.
By the way, you should know that there are still U.S. troops in Iraq watching over the nation that Bush, Cheney, and company smashed into religious and ethnic fragments. A week ago, a number of us went up to Hartford to gather in front of a state office building housing the Treasury, a treasury that holds $10 million in Israel bonds and $100 million of other Israeli securities.
Sell off the Israel bonds! Sell off the Israel bonds! Long live Palestine! Long live Palestine! No Israel bonds! No Israel bonds!
What it means to be a best friend forever, a BFF. We keep hearing that the United States and Israel are best friends forever, and to me that implies that we have a certain mutually respectful relationship with each other. But then when I look at what the behavior of Israel is with relation to the United States, I don't see that. And so I want to talk about a few aspects of that. The first is American citizens who have been murdered by the Israeli Defense Force or by settlers in Israel. This is the 20th anniversary of the murder of Rachel Corrie, who was an activist in Gaza trying to protect people's homes. And she was run over intentionally by an IDF, Israeli Defense Force bulldozer, and killed. 19 years later, after her family received no cooperation with the United States or Israel in investigating her death and coming to some conclusion of what happened, the Palestinian American journalist Syrian Abu Akleh was covering an Israeli Defense Force raid in Jenin in the West Bank. She was shot by the Israeli Defense Force and killed. There were several independent investigations, including a very conclusive one by CNN, that showed that the Israelis killed her. But the Israelis denied it. The Americans said, oh, it was really a terrible accident, and we're sorry it happened, but they refused to investigate. After several months of pressure from Shireen's family, the U.S. actually had the FBI start to investigate it or put them on the case, and in response to that, Benny Gantz, who was the Israeli defense minister at the time, said they're interfering in Israeli affairs.
Dear State Treasurer Russell, I'm a Jewish resident of New Haven who implores you to do what you can to have the state of Connecticut divest its holdings in Israel bonds. In the 1980s, I was part of the anti-apartheid struggle and an activist for the rights of black South Africans. I argued then for the state of Connecticut to divest from companies doing business in South Africa, and to its credit, it did. It's long overdue for Connecticut to divest from Israel. Israel is not a democratic country. Palestinians are second-class citizens. Settlers are forcing Palestinians out of their homes and off their land. The current Israeli government is intent on denying rights to Jews who are not followers of the Orthodox religious laws. I'm sure you're aware of this because it's in the mainstream press. I abhor all the killings. The discrepancy in the numbers of the dead is telling. Deaths of Palestinians are 7 times the deaths of Israelis. Palestinians are fighting for their homes, and the Israeli government is encouraging settlers to drive them out. Today is March 16th, the 20th anniversary of the death of Rachel Corrie, a 23-year-old American who was crushed by an Israeli Defense Forces bulldozer as she and others protested and tried to prevent the demolition of a Palestinian home. This May will be the 1-year anniversary of the killing of Palestinian American Shireen Abu Akleh by an Israeli soldier. Abu Akleh was reporting on an Israeli raid at the Jenin refugee camp. Less well publicized is the death of Palestinian American Omar Assad on January 12, 2022. Reports differ whether he was 78 or 80 years old. When he was driving home at night, he was stopped by Israeli military at a checkpoint in the Palestinian village Jaliyah. He was beaten, gagged, and handcuffed. He had a heart attack from the stress and died. Autopsy showed there were bruises on his head and redness on his wrists, where he was handcuffed. These are American citizens, and the U.S. has not held Israel accountable for their deaths. Now that Israel has a blatant right-wing aggressive government that is trampling on the democratic rights of Israeli Jews, many people are starting to wake up to its nature and are beginning to understand what the Palestinians have been going through all these years. In the name of justice and humanity, start the dialogue to divest from Israel bonds. Stop supporting the Israeli government and its genocide of the Palestinians. I am an American Jew. The state of Israel often says it speaks for all Jews. Rest assured it doesn't. There are many Jews like me who believe in human rights for all, including for the Palestinians who need their land, their economy, and their culture to be respected internationally. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Paula Panzarella.
So you just heard about Rachel Corrie. I just want to read her last email to her family the night before she died. She wrote, she wrote this from Gaza, I couldn't even believe that a place like this existed. But even more, can you believe there are children here? Forget the fear. They tell me that at night. Forget the fear. I am ashamed that I am scared for my own body and dying anonymously inside a house in one of the most populous places on earth, where children die as martyrs of the occupation, which we pay for quietly without ever knowing their names. We need more people. I love you, Rachel.
We picked this building because the Treasury is in here, or the offices of the Treasury and of the Treasurer, the new one, Erick Russell. We've been writing to him. He ran for the position this November and was elected. In the candidacy, in the run-up, we wrote to all the candidates for treasurer and asked them what their position was about Israel bonds and Israel investments. None of them wrote back. Erick Russell didn't write back. So, after Hawara was burned, I wrote to Erick Russell again, and again there was no answer. We're a constituent, we live in this state. I, as a retired teacher, have money that he's investing, $10 million in Israel bonds, but another $100 million in all kinds of other investments. We got in Israel. We got listings of them. All sorts of things. Companies involved in intelligence and spying. And the big one, Elbit. It's the biggest military company in Israel. So we make investments in that too. And it's dead wrong. Erick Russell should get that money pulled out. Take that money off. It's employee money. It's not his money. It's been state employees and teachers and paraprofessionals and all kinds of people who work for the state or city governments. Their money is holed up in here or wherever it's physically kept. And then it's gone out in investments. Enormous amounts of money. Why should it be going to Israel?
Hi everybody. My name is Rahaf Hammami and I'm Syrian American. I've lived here for almost 30 years now. Israel now, the government represents actually a logical development of what has been done. Everybody, when the leader of the free world gives a blank check to Israel to commit atrocities against the Palestinians, this is what's going to happen. They're going to have the worst government, and they're going to continue with their atrocities.
We've been after Connecticut Treasurer Erick Russell since October, asking him to explain to us why he's investing state employee and teacher pension money in Israeli apartheid. But he does not get back to us. Write to him at state.treasurer@ct.gov. March 15 marked 12 years after the start of the Syrian uprising. On Saturday the 18th, people gathered in Times Square, New York City to commemorate. You will note the blue banner about the Al-Abbasi family from promoting enduring peace.
هذا كله عبارة عن نوع من أنواع الصياعة من الرسول وسينتهي هذا الظالم ولن يعيش ونحن منتصرون به. تحياتي للتلفزيون الإسرائيلي. نحن لا نخشى الظلام ليس بعد السجن إلا فجر مجد يتسامى في تنتين
That's our program for today. See us next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller for the Struggle Video News.